Well, how do you build a business that works without the business owner? I spent about 6 to 12 months and I hired a CEO and we worked very closely together to remove myself from the digital agency. And that's when I got a lot of the aha moments.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. The reason most of us get into the real estate investing business is to create financial freedom. Now, what I've personally found is that you have to set up the systems and processes correctly to make this happen. And that is the actual key to get that freedom that we're all looking for. Now, by embracing these concepts, we can install the processes that allow us to focus on what we're good at and allowing others to focus on what they're good at and actually run the day-to-day business. Now, today's guest understands all this. He has helped thousands of people set up the systems to allow them to scale their businesses. Through the creation and deployment of his processes, he's become a system devotee, founding System Hub and Systemology. Now today, his mission is to free business owners from the daily operations of running their business. By creating businesses and processes to manage and run your assets, you will be able to far exceed your growth and with less stress. He is the author of the best-selling book, Systemology, where he lays out how small business owners can implement their right systems in their businesses. But with all that, I'd like to welcome David Jenyns to the show. David, thanks for coming on, bud.
Pleasure. Oh, so excited for this call. Got a lot of good stuff to cover, and it's a slightly different audience sometimes than what I speak to. So I think we're going to be able to really give some key insights that I've not talked about much in great detail.
Good. I think I'm going to look forward to it as well. I think the people are going to love it. Now, guys, if you like what David has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at systemology.com. Okay. So, David, maybe tell listeners a little bit more about how you got into the world of setting up processes and really helping business owners maximize what they're doing.
I ran a digital agency for 13 years, and 10 of those years I was trapped in the business itself. I was doing everything, like I was that bottleneck. I had a small team around me, but everything came through me, whether it was leads that I was chatting with, whether it's staff that had problems they needed help with, whether it's doing the actual work. And I was doing the long hours, late nights, early mornings, weekends. And I thought to myself, when I found out we were pregnant, that was that big turning point. My wife and I, we said, I didn't want to be that dad who was always too busy. And I thought I need to figure out, well, how do you build a business that works without the business owner? How do you step out of the operations? I'd seen it done before in numerous different places, businesses and, family offices and like people running investment portfolios, lots of different spaces where I saw, wow, the key person was able to extract them out. So I spent about 6 to 12 months and I hired a CEO and we worked very closely together to remove myself from the digital agency. And that's when I got a lot of the aha moments. So we had a video production business, which was part of that digital agency. And I didn't know how to turn a camera on. I knew where the power button was, but I didn't know how to shoot or do all of the editing. So I had to build that part of the business from day dot to not work with me. And when I went through that process, I got all of those learnings and we rolled that into as we started to systemize the business. And then I stepped out. The lady, the CEO that I hired, she ran that business for 3 years. And that's really when I finally took some time out. We had the young kids. There was a second child that had come, and I re-looked at things with different perspective where I kind of thought, well, if I'm going to get back into business, what do I really want to do? And that's where I fell in love with systems and processes. And I thought a lot of business owners, they struggle getting out of the operations. I was able to do it. So how do I bottle what I've done and then be able to teach that to others? And that's how Systemology was born.
Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.
Excellent. Yeah, because I think in our world anyway, many people, they're looking to just, of course, some of them buy like single families. They'll buy like 1 or 2 single families and that's it. Or maybe they'll buy 5 or 6 of them. Or they'll buy multifamilies. They'll buy 1, 2, 5, 10. But after a while, things start getting very, very hairy. It becomes very, very difficult to manage. Even if you're offloading everything to a property management company, there's still things that you need to be doing because really you want to be able to track your money. You want to be able to see where things are going, and want to make sure that those tenants, the people living at your properties, are receiving the best care that they possibly can, right? The best management they possibly can receive. So how would you recommend, or how do you start off with devising the right systems and processes around for those entrepreneurs that are looking to scale their businesses? Maybe they're in that position right now. Maybe they have a bunch of properties as we're sitting here right now, and they're wondering, okay, well, great. So what do we do? How do I really help my property management group really become successful? How do I do that?
One of the first things, because with systemization, there's hundreds of directions that you could head in, and quite quickly people can get overwhelmed by which parts to systemize. So the first thing you need to really do is to narrow your focus, and it's how do we find the 20% of the systems that deliver the bulk of the result, the 80% of the result. And just by identifying them, then you can go to work on those. So let's say that you were a property investor, and we think about what the life cycle is that you go through when you're getting a property and you're listing it, and you map this out onto an A4 bit of paper. Start off thinking about what you are currently doing, not what you would like to be doing, and start off at the top thinking, right, what are the stages I go through? And it starts off maybe, how do you first find the properties that you're wanting to invest in? And you can, on an A4 bit of paper, don't write more than 2 or 3 words in each of these boxes, and we'll just work down the page. And we're looking for the linear journey that you go through. So you might start off and you have some sort of research where you're looking for properties. Then maybe there's an outreach. Once you've researched, then you need to go look at the properties, or you have some sort of inspections to make sure that they're meeting your criteria. Then maybe there's a process for the negotiation. Once you go, yes, this is a property that I want to get, what does that look like? And we just keep working our way down the page. Once you get the property, what happens next? Once you've gone through all the formalities and the deal is done and you've done all your settlement, then how do you then prepare the property for getting rented out? There's probably a series of tasks that you would go through to get that property ready. Then what do you do to go to and find the right agent and then get that property listed? And then once the property is listed and maybe it gets tenanted, what happens then? There's probably a series of things that you then need to do to manage the property and make sure that the tenant has all of the details that they need should something go wrong, or if they need to learn about the property. And then finally, how do you then make sure that tenant sticks around? If you just map all of that out on an A4 bit of paper at a high level, each stage, don't put more than a few words in each box. At a very high level, you've explained and documented how your business works. It's the 80-20. Yes, there are a lot of other things. You need to do your taxes, and maybe there is different review processes, and you need to figure out ways to go find agents. There's probably a lot of other things that go on, but at the guts of it, that is your business. Finding property, getting them ready, tenanting them, looking after them and managing them, and making sure that the tenant sticks there. So if you do that first, then you identify, it's almost like the starting ground. Where do you systemize first in there? The next thing that you want to do is think about, where is the pain inside my business at the moment? Is it that you don't have enough properties? Is it that properties aren't being correctly managed? And you narrow in on that. I call it the critical client flow, but you narrow in on that particular stage, and that's where you start. So that's a really easy way that anybody can go through. I mean, I mentioned it in the Systemology book, but you can just do that on an A4 bit of paper just to get you started and get some clarity and focus.
Yeah, it sounds almost like a flow chart, basically.
It's
what it sounds like, right?
exactly like a flow chart. I know you've got some of you of the listeners are listening via just the audio, and then you've got others that are watching this, but I've got Just for those, I'll see if that, there you go. It's just on that side, actually, over there. That's an example of what the flow chart might look like. And then if you show that to someone who isn't in the business, they should be able to instantly get how your business works. It should be clear to them that they can follow the bouncing ball. And when you know they can follow the bouncing ball, then you know that you've done that flow chart correctly.
Yeah. Well, I think something that Gino Wickman talks about in
Traction?
EOS, yeah,
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
EOS, right? In traction, right? You're writing it down in a way that is so simple. You're not using broad terms, nor are you using very industry specific lingo. You're trying to write it down so anybody can follow along, right? That part is absolutely critical, because I think when you simplify things, you're able to follow it. You should be able to hand it off to someone else, and they should be able to follow exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And when you do that, you'll also identify in that critical client flow certain things that will be easier for you to pass off than others. And sometimes it's a little bit counterintuitive. People try and go and systemize the hard things first, whereas I'm going to suggest that you systemize all the easier stuff that it is to pass off. Maybe it's scouring the real estate websites looking for properties that meet certain criteria, and then they get put into a spreadsheet that you review. Maybe something that's nice and easy that you could give to a virtual assistant, and they could do a lot of that heavy lifting, because then that gets you back some time, and then you can put that time then into only the tasks that you can do.
Yeah. I think what many people don't realize is that when you create this, and say you have a business going on right now, maybe you have, I don't know, 20, 30 houses, whatever, something that's something rolling. By defining your business processes, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier, and eventually hand off some of this stuff that you're currently doing to someone else, freeing up your time. But I think what you're also doing is you are creating value by documenting things. I mean, I'll tell you, when I used to work in corporate America, when we go to acquire a business, the first thing we ask for is, show me your processes. And they would walk me over to somebody. Everything was in their head. It's like, well, that's good. However, we're asking for, like, is there an instruction manual? How does this whole business work? And if they couldn't produce that, it usually meant big problems. Usually very big problems.
That digital agency that I had for the 13 years, for the last 3 years where Melissa was running it, we got it to a point where I was very much the business owner. I'd meet with her every quarter. We would run through some management things, because we had some management meetings that we had scheduled. And every quarter I would just get a profit distribution as a business owner, and I wasn't working in the business. And I got to the point where I thought, I'd never want to sell this business ever, because it just is this cash machine. And it worked really, really well for me. And then what ended up happening, it was I got a message. Melissa, the CEO, had said, "Hey, where I have to head back to the States, because she was based in Australia but family over in the US. I've got some things going on with my family that I need to attend to." So she hops on a plane and basically stays away for 2 months. She'd got some really great systems and processes, and she already had a lady who kind of stepped up as her 2IC, second in command, while she was away. But when Melissa came back, I got that dreaded moment. She sent me a note and she said, "Look, I'm going to have to resign. I have to move back to the States. I've got to attend to this thing." And I just remember at the time, I was just felt, like someone had punched me in the guts. Here was this business I'd built up. We got it to the point where it was really humming and doing what it needed to. And I was kind of faced at that crossroads. I'd lost the passion for the digital agency, and Systemology was just starting to take off. And I thought, maybe this is the time to sell it. So I ended up selling that business. I kind of put the word out, ended up getting 2 interested buyers, and one was probably more well-suited to look after the team. So I ended up going with him, and I got a very good multiple on the profit that the business was making. And when he bought it, I asked him, "What are the 2 reasons that you purchased?" Or not 2 reasons. I said, "What was the reason that you purchased?" And he said, "There were 2 reasons. One, I bought it for financial performance. Second, I bought it for the systems and the processes, because I knew you hadn't worked in it for 3 years. I knew that business was an established, mature business that wasn't dependent on you. Whereas a lot of businesses, they're dependent on a particular, either the business owner or a team member. Just like you said, you'd say, show us your businesses and your processes, and they'd point you to a staff member and they go, oh, it's up here. And then you think, yeah, but what happens if Bob gets hit by a train tomorrow? Or what happens if Bob has a family emergency that he needs to attend to? We don't have any systems and processes then. So that was a moment in time for me where I realized you might not even think about selling, but you don't know what's around the corner, and business systems gives you options. If you had a medical emergency and you're running this investment, property investment business, and you needed one of your kids to take over or friends and family, and you didn't have anything going on and you're in a hospital bed and you needed someone to look after it, you'd be in more than just a world of pain because you're in the hospital. Then you've got all of that extra burden that you got to think about. Whereas systems and processes, it just gives you options.
Yeah. Oh, hey, well, the same thing happened to me actually. When I said about a year ago or so, maybe a little longer than that, we brought on this great guy, great developer, and he was phenomenal. And he helped us build out a big part of the early versions of the website, the platforms, all the things that we put together. And then one day he just he had a family emergency, he had to go. But he said he'd be back, but we didn't have any documentation for everything that he'd worked on. Aside from our weekly meetings and stuff, that's where the gap is. And of course, being an IT guy, I should have known better. But when he got back, of course, we went to work immediately and documented everything he did. We did video, we uploaded it to a site, so that way it's accessible by everyone in the staff now. And that's how we do things as a matter of course. Today is whenever we introduce a new process, we create a video to describe what it is they're doing. And then if we do have to hire on more people, we refer to that video, go to video 1.2.2, and it'll explain to you how to do X, Y, Z. Oh, great. Then that's what they do, right? It makes everybody's life a whole lot easier. And I mean, it makes it simple, right? And, and that's the thing, just to your point. If someone leaves, what do you do then? And this whole process works especially great with wholesalers, because I know a lot of wholesalers in our line of work, they use a lot of offshore people to help them with their business. And this is perfect for that, where you record the information, you document it all. That way you can just hand it off to someone, follow this process. And if they're not good at it, you can cycle them out and put someone else in there that is dedicated to the work. Right.
Yeah.
It's absolutely key. Absolutely key.
One thing with that as well, and you hit the nail on the head with how do you create the system? So once you've gone through the critical client flow that we talked about and you map that out, then the question becomes, well, how do I then capture this? And you always want to start with easy first. Make sure that you make it easy on yourself and easy on your team members if you have got some. Just start off recording it, whether it's a Zoom, a Loom, whether it's a recording on your iPhone. Just record it happening in the moment, doing the thing. No matter how raw it is, no matter how rough it is, just get something down and just get that then stored in a central location so that you can get someone else to watch that video and pull out the key steps. And then that becomes version 1 of your system. Then next time you do the task, have that open and you have a look. Oh, was that the right step? Oh, no, let's move that around. You do that 2 or 3 times and then maybe you re-record the video so it's a little bit more polished. Like, that's an organic process that grows over time. Don't try and make it perfect the first time you do it and think, oh, I've got to get this just right because I'm going to go to an offshore assistant and I need to tell them to left click on file, left click on open, left click on, find this file. Like, you don't want to go down to that painstaking detail, especially in the early days. Keep it high level. That's why the critical client flow works so well, because it starts you off high level. Over time, the detail will come. But make it easy on yourself to start.
Yeah. Now, why do you suppose business owners and people that are the entrepreneurs, why are they the worst ones to systemize their processes in their business?
Yeah, I say they're the worst because they're usually one of the most busy. They don't have enough time just, on a regular day, let alone making time to sit down and write systems and processes. And oftentimes they're also not the best people to do it. Sometimes your business owners, they're visionaries, they're leaders, they're big picture thinkers, and they're not necessarily detail orientated, process driven type manager type people. So sometimes you're better off just recording the business owner doing their thing and then giving that task of the documentation to someone else who does enjoy it. And then just by doing that can really free it up. And it's quite liberating when I say to business owners, you're the worst person to do it, because a lot of them have it in their head. I know I should do systems and processes, but I'm not a systems and processes guy. I don't like doing it. Oh, okay, I'm not even going to try. Whereas if I tell them up front, you're the worst person to be doing it, then that gets them to go, okay, well, if I'm the worst person and that's okay, who else is there?
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know what, though? To your point, using Zoom, Zoom.com, of course. Loom is another one that we actually use that. That's what we use in our business, Loom.com. They have great free trials as well that you can use for that. And it'll help you record the video, record audio and the screen and video if you want. And it's helped us out tremendously. It's helped us out tremendously. It's just been phenomenal. Now, how do you define the critical client flow? I know you talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Can you dig a little deeper?
Yeah.
With it?
So it's kind of like the Systemology process. It's this 7-stage process. It starts off with the critical client flow, and we try and narrow the focus on where you're going to start off to systemize. So once you map that out on an A4 bit of paper and you go, right, these are the 10 to 15 systems, then the next thing to think about is where in the business currently is that knowledge stored. So each one of those, imagine each box on your critical client flow as a system. And then you might go, oh, that's trapped in Jane's head, or maybe it's just you and it's all trapped in your head, or maybe you have a couple of team members or assistants or family members who do certain parts of the business. Just figure out where the knowledge is. Then step number 3 is to then go, how do we extract it out of their brain? How do we then make it easy? Record them doing it in the moment. And as I said, make it a 2-person job. Step number 4 then is organizing that knowledge. Just like you talked about, you want to have a central location where the knowledge is all stored so that team members know where to go to look if they've got a question. And they go there first before they come to you. They go, well, let's see if there's a system or a process for that. Then the step after that, we're up to step number 5 in the 7 steps of Systemology. Step number 5 is then the integrate step, which is how do you then get the team to actually follow the process? Because sometimes, some people follow systems, some people don't, but you have to help everybody understand how it benefits them. And the fact that, by following the systems and processes means everybody's job's easier. That said, though, I mean, if you're going offshore and you're hiring an assistant and that's their job, a lot of virtual assistants crave systems and processes because most of the time they don't know what they're doing when they're getting started. They feel bad because the business owner might have told them something once and then they feel like they have to remember it. So they don't go back to the business owner to ask the question and then they just make it up or try and figure it out. Whereas if you had a system or a process that they can keep referring to, like they can then get a great result for you without being so dependent. So that's kind of the integrate stage. The final 2 stages of Systemology, step number 6 is called scale. And that's when we start to think about what are the systems outside of the critical client flow that you need. So maybe there are certain meetings like, one of the systems we talk about is kind of, and you touched on it in EOS, mentioning Gino Wickman's work, thinking about almost like what's your meeting cadence. You might have a monthly meeting with your accountant, and here are the 10 things that you talk about with them. You might have a monthly meeting with your team if you have you and a couple of other virtual assistants that are doing things, maybe, or maybe it's a weekly meeting, but you just got to find whatever your rhythm is and what it is that you're going to talk about in those meetings. And then there are some other systems at that scale level. Sometimes it's recruitment and onboarding. Sometimes there might be some more finance systems. You just have to start to think of what else would I need? Like if I wanted to go from 35 single family homes and I want to go to 150, what systems and processes would I need to have in place to find the properties, to list the properties, to manage the properties? What does that look like? And then lastly, and it's a little bit counterintuitive, and one of the things also that makes Systemology different is you then optimize. I leave optimize until last. A lot of people, they try and get the systems all perfect and just right up front. Whereas I say, just figure out your best practice, capture what you're currently doing, get everybody up to that standard. Then later on, we can get a dashboard into place. We can look at some numbers, and then we can start to see where the problems are. And then we go to work on the problems once you've got something in place. Don't try and systemize like McDonald's. Don't try and make it perfect straight out of the gate. Work towards that. Make it easy on yourself. And then that's the 7 stages. It starts with the critical client flow and then ends with optimization. And we've had some great success just taking businesses through that. It's a bit different as well because there are some things like Six Sigma and Lean, which are methodologies for process improvement, but they all pre-assume that you have a process there to improve. Like you can't do process improvement unless you have a process. So Systemology actually it's the step before that. It's like, what is my process? Where do I start? What am I doing? And that's really what Systemology focuses your attention on.
Yep. Yeah. And I think another big component that you touched on it too, and just to reiterate for our listeners, is that it has to be accessible. That means putting it maybe on Google Docs or using Google Drive, making it accessible to your team. It's all free. That's the great thing about it. You can create all the documents, you can do videos, you can do anything you want, put it up on there, protect it so it doesn't get deleted by somebody, and they can watch it. They can watch it to their heart's content, and everything is documented. There's so many free tools now compared to even 10 years ago. There's nothing back then. You had to use like Wikipedia or something like that, one of those open source solutions, get it installed on your internal network to get something like this. Now it's all free. It's very easy to do.
I think that's the other thing that people often overcomplicate this. Like everything that we've said on this call, I think anybody could follow along with. We've not said anything complicated, and we've just talked about simple systems. And if it's just you starting off with Word documents in a Dropbox folder or in a Google Docs in a Google Drive, like just start very simple. Over time, yes, if you grow your team and then you turn into the next Donald Trump and you own millions of properties around the world, then okay, maybe you start to get some higher level enterprise software and the team starts to grow, and that's different. But I mean, if we go down to where you are right now, let's just keep this simple so anybody can do it. Any team member can be involved, because that's the other thing. You don't want this to just rest on your shoulders, the business owner. This has to also rest on the shoulders of your team. And what you're actually doing is you're changing the culture in your organization. You're moving from hey, we kind of make it up as we go. Whatever fire is going on, whatever real estate agent is calling me saying that this tenant is a nightmare, usually that's where most people's attention goes. It just goes to wherever the fire is. We want to kind of start to change things where, hey, there's certain things that need to happen at certain intervals. They have to be consistently done, and we have a way of doing things. If you get to that point, you will transform your business. I guarantee it. I've seen it hundreds, if not thousands of times before.
Yeah. I think, and one thing I like about your process is that you don't really start making iterations till the very end. And that encourages just taking action, not overthinking it. Document it, write it all down. You're going to find an error. You miss something. It's okay. Get it all down, then go back and fix it. Tighten it up later. I love it. That's just phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Now, if you had one piece of bulletproof advice for someone listening out there, what would you tell them?
I tell them, if your business doesn't work without you, your business is broken. And I'm hoping that's enough to light that fire in you to go, well, if it's broken, I've got to fix it. Because your business can work without you, regardless of how dependent on you think it is. Businesses have come before and done this before you. This is not, we're not reinventing the wheel here. You know of real estate businesses that have been built that aren't dependent on one person. And if they can do it, you can do it. So you just got to start this process, and you'll look back and go, wow, this was probably one of the best episodes I've ended up hearing, because that was the turning point that made me go, I'm going to do something about it. And then you got to stick with it. That's the other thing. You got to keep this front and center. This is not a one and done. You don't systemize for 3 months and then go, great, I've run a systemized business now. Like, it is a way of being, a way of thinking, and you're changing the culture. So you think in terms of, I fix a problem once and then I solve it forever because I fix the system level, which then solves it recurring. And you do that over time, and then all of your little problems, they start to disappear. And then you only start to get faced with these bigger problems. And as a business owner, that's what you should be working on. You should be working on the biggest problems, because that's where you get paid the most and that's where you do the best work. But solving little problems, answering questions for real estate agents or annoying tenants or things like that, all of that stuff can be solved once. So you can then focus on the highest value tasks.
Yeah, love it. All right, guys. If you want to reach out to David, you can reach him at Systemology.com. Hope you got some insight on how you can create the processes and procedures around your business. Check out his website. It's got really good stuff. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.